Hello, I'm Yoshi Campbell. I'm the executive director of Coro Allegro, and I just wanted to welcome you to the premiere of Amplifying Black Voices. Today's opening program, America, We Need to Talk, features composer Fred Onovwerosuoke, or as he invites his friends to call him, Fredo. I just want to give you a very quick roadmap to today's program. We'll start with an introduction to the composer and his kaleidoscopic work, A Triptych of American Voices, a Cantata of the People, which was commissioned for and premiered by Coro Allegro in 2019. You will hear from the composer, the conductor, the commissioners, and a bit of a conversation that Fredo and I have had over the years about race and classical music and the impact of this piece. Then we were going to pause and invite a couple of the guest artists who performed with us at the premiere, Oney and Jonas Budris. And then we're also going to bring up two special people who were in the audience for the premiere. Christopher Wilkins, the music director of the Boston Landmarks Orchestra, and my dear friend Adelia Parker-Castro, who was married to Michael Castro, the late poet laureate of St. Louis, whose poem, We Need to Talk, concludes the piece. Then finally, we hope to hear from you in the audience, so please feel free to comment in the chat and also let us know if you have questions. And at the end of the program, we want to take some of your questions and hopefully give the artist a chance to answer them. And then at the end, we're just going to play you out for those who wish to stay and listen to the last movement, We Need to Talk, which lasts about 4 minutes. And just one last thing, this event is free, but donations are welcome to support the series. You can donate at coroallegro.org, or you can text TALK, T-A-L-K, to 202-858-1233. And then if you're at coroallegro.org, you can learn a little bit more about the Amplifying Black Voices series, and you can read a longer form conversation that Fredo and I had. So now it's just my pleasure to introduce you to composer Fred Onovwerosuoke and my colleague, Coro Allegro Artistic Director, David Hodgkins. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's concert. I'm with Fredo Onovwerosuoke, who has become a fast friend, and now I would say a long time. If we can call 4 or 5 years a long time, we will call him a long-time friend as well. I met Fredo a few years ago when Coro Allegro had its 25th anniversary concert. Our accompanist, Daryl Hollister, who was just an amazing pianist and who is now retired, at the time I had asked him if we commissioned a piece for him, what composer would he want to have write for him? And he immediately answered, Fredo. So we called Fredo and asked if he wanted to write this piece for Daryl. And what came out of this was the Caprice for orchestra and piano, or piano and orchestra really, in 2017, with Daryl as the soloist and strings, 2 trumpets and timpani and a triangle. Anyway, it was an amazing success, beautiful piece, wonderful addition to the repertoire. And so I'm going to ask Fredo if he wants to just talk a little bit about that initial collaboration and the piece itself.
Well, maestro, it's just been a wonderful 4 or 5 years of your friendship and your support. And as you know, composers, we need that kind of support. But then when we get that support, the next task is to write beautiful music. So the Caprice is it's a quasi piano concerto, if you will, except that it's in 2 movements, one programmatic slow and one furiously fast and bombastic second closing movement, So you got me started. I think down the road, I have a dream to make it a full-fledged piano concerto.
That'd be great. Well, I wanted to say just a little bit about the first movement, which is so beautiful and so haunting and in some ways so eerie. But you hear, it's very programmatic, I would
It
say,
is.
and atmospheric, really. That you have these sounds that come out of the strings, little tremolos, and you also hear a little bit of French, sort of these sweeping French kind of lines, and it's really arresting in how beautiful it is. And then you're right. There's this complete switch to this incredibly rhythmic. I think there's sort of a combination of African rhythms and Stravinsky, and
That's right. You got it.
And but really taut. This very crisp. With these amazing roulades from the pianist and the orchestra punctuating all of those piano parts.
And then the blessing of having such a phenomenal pianist, Daryl Hollister. As Wendy likes to say about Daryl, his pedigree is rare.
Yeah.
Is rare, and it saddens me that people of that artistic, creative caliber, are not celebrated on the world's greatest concert stages. But his legacy is with you guys, and you all got to cherish that legacy, I'm sure.
That led to another commission for chorus and orchestra and piano.
I had never commissioned or even considered commissioning a piece of music. It was just a really amazing series of events that led to this. And we were rehearsing with the orchestra at Payson Park Church, and I heard this music, and it was just spellbinding. It was just incredible. And I just remember sitting there I think really the chorus as a whole, just taking this all in. And I remember at the time just thinking, I've never heard anything quite like this. It was almost, I remember feeling like I was hearing little echoes of Janáček and hearing elements, both American, African, modern, classical. It was just a... Afterwards, Zach and I were hosting a reception. Among the folks who came to the reception was Fredo himself. And we ended up talking quite a bit during the reception, and just told him how incredibly just moved I was by the piece. And It was sort of during that period, I don't know how the idea even started getting into my head. What would it be like to perhaps commission another piece?
Yeah, I myself, I think seeing it in pieces to begin with and have it come together in such a beautiful fashion and turn into such a wonderful piece of art was just amazing. And that's the first time that I've had an experience of seeing something like that come together, and to be part of, bringing it to light. I was very proud to be associated with the piece.
Mm-hmm.
What was the experience like as a singer? Singing a piece that you commissioned.
So the words that we were singing had just so much power, and then the music with those words together, and to be just surrounded by such dear friends in Coro made it even more special. And as you said, David, with the soloists, that element was just so poignant.
One of our goals in this series, Amplifying Black Voices, is about looking back at the relationships with these composers that were really, and artists and advocates that we're very proud to have collaborated with. But we're also looking, very much having this conversation in the context of a year that's really called all of us to confront the realities of racism in America, which this piece invokes.
It's almost chilling to go back and revisit the piece and think about how prescient it was at the time, and this notion of needing to talk and needing to come together, needing to understand each other. The poetry that was already, sort of declaiming the importance, frankly, of Black lives, and as each one of these horrible events unfolded in subsequent years, couldn't help but think back to the piece and back to that plea, and frankly, needing to do a lot more than just talk. My only thought is that we need even more music like this, and so I hope there'll be some folks who will be inspired to maybe commission additional works, newer works that'll continue to help build bridges, and I think we're all looking forward to the day when we're back performing live, and it would be wonderful to be able to celebrate that with some new music.
So a reviewer once described your music as classical music reimagined. I've been working on issues of diversity and inclusion and equity in classical music, so I wanted to begin by asking you about that. Do you see your work as classical music reimagined? And if so, how?
A great question. The term classical music is just an umbrella term for music that is disciplined and well thought out, music whose structures can convey imagery, stories, a variety of human emotions. Yes, the concept of classical music, as the term implies, was first formalized in Europe. But how people traditionally have been able to tell these musical narratives is through the songs from their own neighborhoods, the chants of their community, and the wide spectrum of musical experiences, and not just through the lenses of European culture or within the confines of the acceptable music conservatory canon. Mm-hmm. Something I like to say is that if every concert hall in America could allow a wide variety of repertoire to come in, could allow a different palette of music to be heard, with influences from the East and the Middle East, from Africa, from the Caribbean and Latin America, influences from the wealth of experiences shared by diverse immigrant populations to America. That will be classical music reimagined, because audience sizes will increase, not decrease, as the recent trend seems to indicate.
Let's talk about the work that you wrote for Coro Allegro and for pianist Daryl Hollister, a Triptych of American Voices, a cantata of the people. Why did you call the work a Triptych of American Voices?
Oh, I wanted to create a grand work in three big movements, each of which will be starkly unique in form and style, hence the word triptych. I meant each section to help forge one collective, one contiguous musical narrative, and then in between certain sections, I've used ancient African oracles from Vondu, priestesses, and of course, one of my favorite authors, George Orwell.
What about the subtitle, a cantata of the people? Where does that
Another great question. Cantata comes from singing. Cantata of the people is when the people express themselves through song. Songs of protest in the triptych. We have a people who have been stifled and are telling their story through song and instruments. The triptych is a commentary on the contemporary American political climate. What we're going through right now, of the people that are seemingly entrapped in ongoing, unrelenting, and partisan tribal political discourse, of a people who indeed know why the caged bird sings. You can hear it right from the leitmotif first uttered by the flute in the overture.
Oh, that beautiful bird call that opens the work. Yeah.
That simple bird call nagged me for almost a whole year before I eventually wrote it down. The rest of the work began to take form from there.
So after this wonderful opening, we get the first entrance of the chorus on the text, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, by Paul Laurence Dunbar, as quoted by Dr. Maya Angelou. And the beauty of the way he sets this poem, two things. First of all, you hear the yearning for freedom in the music. There is this. The chorus has these great sweeping lines up and down, as if the bird was trying to fly out and hits the cage and then is knocked back down, only then to try to do it again. And even at the end, he raises the whole thing up a whole step to increase that intensity.
In the background of everything you just said, there is almost like a cacophony in the background.
Yes.
If you listen from a distance, you hear these strings. There's a lot of subtle, intentional dissonance. But all of that collectively, you will hear a cacophony of happy birds outside. You could hear, they're all happy. And then this guy is locked up in this cage.
Yeah. One of the things that strikes me about your music, in the two pieces that I've done so far, is that often one of the things that it also made it difficult for the chorus to rehearse is because the chorus part by itself, you think, oh, okay, that's pretty decent, but you really treat the chorus as another instrument of the orchestra.
Exactly.
So when you hear the chorus part by itself, it's okay, I understand that, but it's hard to rehearse because it's fragmented, just like a flute or bassoon part or something would be fragmented, and then when it's their turn to come in, it makes a big difference. So the orchestra is not merely an accompaniment of the chorus, like in a Mozart mass or something. Not that Mozart would ever just accompany a chorus, but it is like chamber music in a way, because every part is integral, and the difficult part for the chorus is that you don't really hear all of that until the dress rehearsal or the first orchestra rehearsal, when all of a sudden, oh, that's what all this is, and so see how it all fits in. So it's really brilliant writing, and it's a little bit unusual, I would say, the way the chorus is treated.
So part 2 begins with a quote that's attributed to George Orwell. Why quote Orwell in an American triptych?
Well, in part for the same reason. George Orwell's Animal Farm and 1984, two great books, fictions. Same reason they are recommended reading across many American schools. And mind you, America is supposed to be an amalgam of cultures and immigrants with diverse experiences. So, in a way, I thought the quote was particularly significant commentary on this moment in American history, a jab, if you will, on the 2016 election. Yeah, I wanted to say we are complicit, that we are part of this, that we helped create the mess we are in. And what better way to say it than use the Orwell's quote in a chant, as if in a protest march, metaphorically.
George Orwell said, "A people that neglect corrupt politicians are not victims." They're imposters, thieves, traitors, they're imposters, they are thieves, traitors, they're imposters, oh, they are thieves, traitors, they're imposters, they are thieves. Now don't you ever listen when they try
So what I love about this movement, you set this as if we're in a Southern Baptist church almost, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so
Exactly.
we have the chorus functioning in a Greek turba chorus kind of role as the congregation chanting over and over the same thing, led by this fire breathing preacher in Jonas, the tenor. And then the energy just keeps building and building, and then you add on top of that this beautiful high countertenor that is just soaring over all of this energy and anger, really, right? And then it comes to a big sort of cadence again.
Yeah.
That's kind of a brilliant stroke of how to set that text and how to. It's kind of a metaphor, really, for what's been happening in this country for years, right? I mean, there is a large group of people that are angry, and they start chanting and they start marching, and then you have these fire, breathing leaders, and then you hear the people wailing over whatever that happens to be. It could be somebody that was killed, even. So,
I don't know if you remember a conversation we were having. When I first sent you the finished composition, and I had made notes. Okay, wow, the countertenor is going to improvise here, and you said, well, do you want to just write it out? And I don't know if you remember, I told you he's going to be fine. He's going to be fine.
You did.
See, during performance, the spirit took over, and Ty was just fine.
Yeah.
He was even going, woo, and he went, So these are some of the things that are metaphysical. They're difficult to explain. Things that happen in the Black church where people are for good, just roused to become aware, because we live in a country where we easily get dumbed down. We easily become asleep, and the Black church is one place where people are woken up.
Let's talk about the amazing Langston Hughes poem, As I Grew Older, that follows in part 2. It has powerful images of a wall rising between the speaker and his dream that seem so relevant to the debates that America is having right now. Was that why you chose it?
The wall in Langston Hughes' poem speaks Black Lives Matter. And to the wall, our President Trump was clamoring to build on our southern U.S. border. But beyond the wall, what Langston Hughes was talking about is a race thing, an ethnicity thing, a sexuality thing, a trans, an accent thing, a gender thing, an order thing.
I noticed that while your setting of the Dunbar stays really close to the ideas of the poem, you can hear the birds singing, you can hear the straining to be free. In your setting of the Hughes and of the piano interlude that sets it up, there's this playfulness that recalls jazz or Gershwin or Ellington that almost belies the poem's themes. You even note somewhere in the score that there should be a little swag on the piano. And yet there's such darkness in the poem. What was your intention in this contrast?
Well, that is an excellent question. I put myself in Langston Hughes' shoes as an immigrant composer. And I asked, what do I do when walls are put in place to stifle me? See, I would rather you see me smile as if to say, evidently you have put these walls up to keep me out. But I'm going to show you that I can eventually break through without satisfying your desire to see me suffer. But deep inside, the oppressed peoples of the world, they know well the severity of walls, overt and covert inhibitions, shattered dreams, and so forth. I thought of no better medium than jazz as the appropriate facade to convey Langston Hughes' poem. But, however, towards the end of that movement, I totally turned the page, stylistically speaking, and so the full impact of the poem is meted out with great intensity.
The wall shadow, I am black, I am black, I am black, I lie down in the shadow, no longer the light of my dream before me, above me, only the light, only the shadow, my head, my dark and bring to the light, find my dream, find my dream, help me to shatter this darkness, to smash this night, to break this shadow into a thousand years of sun, into a thousand bleeding hearts.
Hello, my name is Adelia Parker-Castro, and I would like to read you a poem written by my late husband, Michael Edward Castro, the first Port Laureate of St. Louis, Missouri. It is entitled, We Need to Talk. The poem was written in response to the death of Michael Brown, who lived in Ferguson, Missouri. We need to talk. I am more than your idea. I am tangible, touchable, a human being like you. We breathe the same air, want the same things. We need to talk. I am more than my skin tone, more than the weight I bear, more even than my hair, more than who I sexually prefer, more than my accented speech. Hear me, we need to talk. So get out of your closed mind. It's claustrophobic in there. Thoughts fester if they can't expand. Let's meet. Get out of your car, onto the street. Let's discover each other on common ground. We need to talk. I say, take off your armor. Put down your gun. Don't just stare dumbly into your smartphone. Or as they say in the East, namaste or sabati. The God in you honors the God in me. We need to talk. Thank you.
As a member of the chorus, I've noticed that sometimes you stay close to the structure of the poem and other times you play with them. In the last movement of Michael Castro's poem, We Need to Talk, you shift the order of some of the lines. And I'm just curious, why did you choose to do that?
I was taking artistic liberties. See, when he heard his poem used in the concluding moment, he noticed at once how I had reversed his poem, and with a twinkle in his eyes, he chuckled. I like how you reversed the poem and gave it a different kind of energy. I really like it. Well, after all, the way we were protesting in St. Louis during the Ferguson unrest, After the death of Michael Brown, it was not a gentle voice. It was a strong voice by the people. Get out of your closed mind. Wake up and address this bigotry, these injustices. The way things are now, as a black man, it doesn't matter if you're a professional. It doesn't matter how accomplished you are. You have to take 2 or 3 looks in your rear view mirror at all times. For black people, regardless of our economic or social status, the double standards that we are subjected to have caused a lot of pain and frustration in our communities. There are multi-level frustrations that, if left unaddressed, will erupt to the surface and disrupt the comforts the privileged people in our society have taken for granted. So these insecurities have become costly. Society should not normalize a culture of fear.
Heed the gentle voice of my drum.
So, Fredo, as we talk about this final movement, which is such an amazing, an amalgamation of ideas, and you hear sort of the foment of all that's going on in this final section. I'm reminded of the dinner that you and I had with Adelia and Wendy and my wife Sheila and Janet and the night before the concert, and this was after the dress rehearsal. And I remember talking to you and saying to you, you know, that I understand this last movement sort of intellectually, but I feel like I'm not conducting it well because I'm trying to do too much. And part of the problem is there's so much going on. I'm trying to conduct everything and feel everything, and I feel like I'm pressing it. And so then you had this most amazing moment. Well, which I recounted actually in the warm up in the concert, and it made a difference in the performance too. And I said, you know, what I realized is that I really just have to kind of stay out of the way and let all these rhythms go, but I don't really understand these rhythms. And then you sat there and you started tapping on the table and you started patting your chest, and you had, so you had 5 or 4 or 5 rhythms going on in each different part of your body at the same time. And to have that physicalization and that visual feeling of all that's going into that music, for me, it was just revelatory. It just said, oh, I understand now. So they are not separate rhythms; they are all part of one thing. And so all I need to do is just let them happen.
The third movement, we need to talk movement. I just basically dug deep into Adowa rhythms from Ghana, you know. So you got you know. Fredo is not easy because as a composer, I'm in a different world that, to be frank, the establishing canon of conservatory don't understand yet. And that world is essentially a world of rhythmic ideas. And we still have the dominant canon of thinking of 300 years of harmonic analysis.
Right.
We've not really even begin to comprehend the intricacies of rhythms from around the world. I think that's the next frontier. So Fredo is not easy, but you just manage to hit in the caprice and in the triptych. You just have this amazing mind to be able to put things together. And I think a lot of what happened at the premiere, the success, is due to your, just amazing creative capacity to discern and bring people together. So thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hi. So we're about to bring on a couple of the people that performed with us, Oney, and also Jonas Budris, who you just got a chance to hear. And let me just put us all in a configuration like that. And I'm going to maybe I'll put David in the middle. Okay, great. So I'll leave you to it, David. What do you want to talk about?
Well, first of all, thank you and welcome to the live portion of this program. I do want to introduce Ty and Jonas, who I specifically, when I commissioned the work, I said I really would like to have a white tenor and a black countertenor so that we had a visual representation of what this piece was trying to accomplish. And so my question to you, both to Ty and Jonas, is what kind of challenges, both artistic and emotional challenges, did this piece present to you? And did it alter you in any way in terms of your outlook on race in general? Ty, you want to go first?
To go first? Okay. Well, first I'll say that this was such an amazing experience and somewhat of like a cathartic release to sing something directly related to my experience as a Black man, as a Black gay man. I would say that it challenged me technically as well as emotionally. I don't know, on a level that was, I guess, unexpected. And I really didn't have any expectations. All I knew, David, when you approached me, that there was going to be a piece written with my voice type in mind, a countertenor voice, and sort of music that when people approach me and they say, oh, I'm writing something for a countertenor voice, I like to see it and sing through it before committing. But the subject matter was so poignant that I didn't really care what the range was or what the tessitura was. And all of those things just kind of took a back seat in the beginning. But once I got the score and I saw the music and I noticed some of the arias had, required spanning a 2-octave range, I said, oh, Lord, what have I gotten myself into? Particularly in part 2, the Langston Hughes, As I Grew Older, that challenged me vocally, because not only are there large leaps and the chromaticism and the blue notes, because this is Langston Hughes, this is jazz. I'm thinking about the part where it's like, Rose, will they touch the sky, touch the sky. That is jazz, honey. And so that part, trying to blend the jazz with the the classical training that we tried to perfect in years of conservatory. That was a bit challenging, but it felt familiar, and it was that familiarity that kind of reminded of, here are these two worlds, or these different worlds that Fredo was ingenious to create. And it reminded me of having this sense of what W.B. Du Bois calls double consciousness, this idea of one foot in this world and another foot in the other world. And for me as a Black man during this time, it was, thinking about the complexity of surviving through your Blackness or my Blackness, and because of my Blackness, but also maintaining my Blackness and the power that comes with that. So it was liberating. It was great to be able to sing this text in a space, in a predominantly white space, and have fun with it.
Great. Thank you so much. Jonas, your thoughts?
Yes, I'd love to also echo what you said. I had a lot of similar reactions, and just feel really grateful to get to sing this music. In particular, we just heard from you earlier in your responses, Fredo, about how it's almost, for example, the second movement. It's almost like church, or it is like church. Not almost, it is like church, because I felt a very similar reaction to singing and performing in that movement as I did attending and singing in church. In the church where for the past some years I've been attending and performing as part of the choir, we would always say during the confession of sins, we would say we repent of the evil we have done and the evil done on our behalf. I almost would say that in quotes, very, very, because evil, there is evil that we participate in, whether we want it to happen or not, and we have to acknowledge that. And so it felt similar to perform, and it was challenging. It took me, it made me feel, oh gosh, yeah. And I think there's great value to getting up on stage or in a performance venue with other people and saying these things and making this music happen, because just like any other, it's more than a ritual, but people get up when they're getting married, or if they're being sworn in to public office, and they do things, they do physical things, and these gestures, like when we held hands at the end of the piece. I think it's really important for that to happen. There's really great value to that. I also want to just touch on one of the things you mentioned earlier about the polyrhythms in the final movement. That was probably the most challenging thing for me, and because that is music. Those are musical elements they're not from my neighborhood. They're from outside my neighborhood. So I had to get out of my car to do that. And I appreciate. That's what made it so interesting and so engaging and challenging and good and worthwhile. And I think it really reflects perfectly one of the great things about this work and the experience of performing it together with everyone is that we get out of our comfort zone. And it's not just we get out of our comfort zone so that we can experience other things. Getting out of the comfort zone is that is a goal. There is good in that by itself. So that's I'm so grateful to have had a chance to do that.
Great,
for
thanks.
this music.
I just want to visit one thing you just said about holding hands at the end. Mm-hmm. So when I had asked the two of you to actually come together somehow and figure out something that you could do. So because you were one was on one side, one was on the other side, but I wanted you to come together in the middle at the end.
Yeah.
But then I looked at you and said, "You guys do it," and I didn't even really know what you were doing because you were behind me. So what was that conversation like? How did you just say, "Let's just come together and hold hands"? Because the beautiful, the merging of the black and white, the straight and the gay, the everything in that room was just so incredibly powerful. Just a quick comment on that.
Ty, do you remember?
Well, feel free to add or jump in. I vaguely remember. David, you're saying do something like, okay, what are we gonna do? What are we? But I think when you're singing something like this that's so raw and filled with emotion and personal, you start to develop this connection with your colleagues. And I think Jonas and I made the decision to turn toward each other at that time, but it was actually Jonas, you suggested that you would offer your hand to me. And so he took that first step and I followed. And so that was quite symbolic that, Jonas, a white cis male, taking this first step and then adding, I'm saying, okay, we can do this together, and it was just, I'm lost for words at how that turned out.
Yeah, it was really wonderful.
I know. Would you like to hear it, David? Do you want to hear a little of that section? I've got that queued up. If you'd like to play a little bit of it, why don't we? It's so beautiful.
Before we do that, I would just want to say that the end. Well, I'm glad you said about the offering the hand, because the way the piece actually ends, it's not a final chord. it's like a question mark, or what happens next. It's open ended. It doesn't, and so somebody has to make that gesture, and so when the piece ends, it says, now what? Now what's next? And so to hear that Jonas actually puts his hand out first, which I didn't even know, makes a huge amount of sense, because somebody has to take the initiative, right? So yes, if we could just play a little bit.
Sure.
Accented speech, the God in you honors, the God in
Let's in the interest of time, let's just end it there. But yeah, that image is just so, it makes me cry every time I see it. It just is, it's just so powerful, and really is the point of the piece, right? And don't forget, this is actually after the first half, when we had the William Grant Still and they lynched him on a tree. I mean, I feel like this is actually in the next step in the lineage from William Grant Still, which of course is a plug for our next event in the series. So I want to invite Christopher Wilkins, who is the artistic director of Landmarks Orchestra, in for just a moment. Hi, Chris. How are you?
Hello, everybody. Hello, team. It's great to see you all.
Christopher was in the audience and heard the piece. And Chris, I'm just going to let you take it from there and explain what you thought and what you did.
Yeah, it was overwhelming. I think it was for all of us. It was sort of devastatingly powerful. And as you mentioned, coming out of the William Grant Still and they lynched him on a tree was sort of a heck of a way to set up this idea. And I can't add a lot to what you've all said about the piece, but I can express from the audience point of view that we all felt we were attending something really important, that it was an event and a piece of music and a performance that really mattered, and that said a lot about the music itself, about the organization. And of course, Coro had come back to the William Grant Still, what was it, David, 20 or 25 years?
Years, yeah.
Right, after having given at least the Boston premiere,
yeah,
of the work. So that, to me, also showed just sort of an ongoing commitment, and then this feeling that we all had that all of this mattered to us, and just this sense of keep it going. And that's what prompted me to say, well, wouldn't it be great to have a little bit of that on our series? So at the Boston Landmarks Orchestra at the Hatch Shell. So we had Ty and Jonas and David conducting Coro Allegro in that final movement. I think we really did the final two movements of it. And one of my favorite images from the night is of that holding of hands of Ty and Jonas. Our photographer got a just smashing shot of that as the sun was setting at the Hatch Shell on the Esplanade. So just a very moving and meaningful work that resonates a lot with us, because for Landmarks, we're about many of the same things that Coro is about, I would say, which is giving voice to community and finding ways to find a unified, moving experience that emerges from diversity. And so I was just really proud to be a part of it, and so happy you all were able to come join us in the summertime, some months after the premiere.
It was our pleasure, and we had been in discussions, you and I, about another piece which talked about a black and a white choir, and had a wonderful panel discussion about that as well. But that's another topic for another time. But thank you, Yoshi. Is it Adelia going to join us in this final segment here? You're muted, Yoshi.
Here is Adelia Parker-Castro, who's come to join us.
Hi, Adelia. Well, we just have a couple of minutes left. But if you could just maybe recount your thoughts about the premiere of the piece, and also, this was talk about why you wore a Harvard sweatshirt.
Because it's chilly here and it's very warm. Well, I thought it would be good advertisement. But no, I really liked the sweatshirt. Michael liked it. He wore it, before he passed away. And it keeps me warm on these early spring days.
Yeah. Could you just give just recount your feelings about hearing your husband's words set to music, and you're friends with Fredo, I believe, before this, and then just what you were feeling at that premiere.
Oh boy, I was very honored to be there, and I really appreciate the work that Fred has put into it, with all the thought and everything. And it's like this tapestry that's been woven. Fred had also invited Michael to read with the royal drummer. You talk about cadence, and you talk about communicating, the sacredness of a gathering, of a coming together, and that's what Michael and this drummer was doing at the time. And it all, is also woven into this particular event as well. And I could only put that together just as you all were talking today. And I said, oh, yes, that all fits together. So thank you, Fred. How I was feeling was I was very touched by the whole thing. I want everybody to see it. I've been waiting for the video to go out and everything. It is just beautiful. And the gentleman, you two singers, vocalists, I was very moved by what you both did. I think everybody was moved by it. I think what Fred is doing is like weaving this major tapestry that we all can be comforted with at some point in our lives. It's amazing. It really is how we can look at how all our lives are woven together, and if all of us could realize that, it would definitely be a much better world. Really.
Perfect words to end on. I want to thank all of our guests, Adelia, Jonas, Fredo, Ty, Christopher, for joining us today. Fredo for birthing such a beautiful movement, work, and I hope it gets heard a lot, because it needs to get heard a lot.
Yes.
So I want to thank also Yoshi, who put this program together and did a lot of the videos.
Brilliant production.
Beautiful production.
Excellent.
So I think we're going to end with actually playing of the last movement, or the last half of the last movement of the triptych. And thank you all in the audience for coming. And I hope you join us again. Yoshi, any last words?
Yes. Well, first of all, I just want to invite one last chance. If anybody would like to ask some questions, I think I saw someone earlier on saying, maybe this is a question for Fredo, but just what is music? You talked about what is classical music reimagined. What do you think music is? And maybe what is music's role, art's role right now, in this movement for Black lives? I'll just add that. Anything you want to add on that, Fredo, or anyone else?
No, I'm good. There's a lot of answers already provided. So I'm glad you're inviting everyone to go to your website to read the entire conversation. But beautiful, brilliant production, Yoshi. Bravo.
Thank you. I'll just thank you all. I just want to say thank you to everybody who came and was part of this. It was just so wonderful to see so many of the performers. We had some people from the orchestra and many from the chorus come and join us. And I think we're all just really missing live music. It was such a pleasure for me to put this together, because I was hearing, Ty's voice and Jonas's voice and just the brilliant writing of Fredo. But I just want to let you know, thank you for coming. We are, as David said, doing another event. This is going to be a series. The next in the series is going to be on Sunday, April 25th. And it's going to be called The Conversation Still Needed, in which Jonathan Q. Berryman and the Heritage Chorale of New Haven joins us to talk about William Grant Still's powerful double chorus drama, And They Lynched Him on a Tree. And we're going to look at that in the context, obviously, of extrajudicial killing that has been happening and the movement for Black lives. Thinking about that today, I think yesterday was the anniversary for Breonna Taylor. So thinking about her name and so many other names that need to be remembered. So if you'd like to learn more, you can go to coroallegro.org. You can join our mailing list and you'll find out about subsequent episodes. There'll be one with Phil Lima where we look at some Civil War memorials, the statue that was recently taken down in Boston, and then Florence Price's memorial to the complications of the Lincoln myth. And then we're going to have a conversation with Reggie Mobley later about A Luta Continua, this amazing piece that he sang with us, and that I hope that Ty is going to come back and be part of that conversation because he also sang it with us at a different performance. And so we're really looking forward to that. And so just like David said, we'll play you out with some music, but I will, if you don't mind, mention that while all of this is free, we really appreciate donations to support the series, and it allows us to thank the artists and just cover expenses. And you can donate again at coroallegro.org, or you can text the word TALK, T-A-L-K, to 202-858-1233. And we really appreciate the donations that have already come in. It was very, very moving as we were pulling this together. So now we'll just end by playing you out with the last movement, We Need to Talk, on a poem by Parker-Castro, the Poet Laureate of St. Louis.